Hello from the hilltop. Welcome to today's Georgetown University Alumni Career Services webinar, sponsored by the Georgetown University Alumni Association. I'm Sarah Adler, Associate Director of Alumni Career Services. Today's webinar had more than 200 registrants, and we're so glad to see that so many of you were able to take the time to be here in person today. Thanks for joining us. Today's webinar, Solving Career Burnout and How to Get Re-Inspired, is hosted by Hoya friend Hallie Crawford. Before we get started, I'd like to share just a few webinar tips and reminders. First, this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available to all registrants on our Alumni Career Services YouTube channel within 24 hours of today's broadcast. You'll receive the link to the webinar recording in a webinar follow-up email, which will also contain a post-webinar survey for you to take, information on upcoming webinars, and more ways to stay connected with Georgetown Alumni Career Services. Hallie will share a handout with you all today during our presentation, and the handout will be included in the follow-up email as well. You'll be able to see the handout in the handout area of the GoToWebinar control panel. Questions and comments are welcome throughout today's webinar, and we look forward to hearing from you. To submit a question, please use the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel. Hallie will conduct a Q&A at the end of the webinar. And finally, we'll be using the polling feature of GoToWebinar today. So when I launch the polls, please take just a few seconds to participate. We really appreciate hearing from you. Without further ado, I'd like to quickly introduce Hallie. Our presenter, Hallie Crawford, is a certified career coach and national expert based in Atlanta, Georgia. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and team of coaches have helped thousands of people worldwide identify and transition into their dream careers, effectively navigate their job searches, and enhance their performance at work. Hallie is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including on U.S. News and World Report, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, and Fox Business News. For more information about her services, please visit her website, HallieCrawford.com, which I will share with you in the webinar follow-up email. Hallie, we're so eager to hear from you, so I'll turn things over to you now.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate being here. And thank you all for being here today. We greatly appreciate your time on your lunch hour to talk about solving career burnout. So as Sarah said, I am Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach and founder of HallieCrawford.com. I'm also a speaker and author as well. And here's the deal, everybody. I want you to know that being burned out, even though I love what I do, it happens to the best of us, including me. So it has been over 18 years that I have been coaching and training since I first started my business. I know some of you are probably like, how is that possible? Because she sounds like she's 12. I'm actually 45 and was lucky enough to find my passion in my work in my late 20s. And I love what I do today. I feel like I'm meant to do it. It's meant to be. But even I can feel overworked, or sometimes, honestly, everyone, like it's too routine and I need to mix it up. So I want you to know, first of all, out of the box here, that I understand how this can feel. I can get kind of bored sometimes with my career path or overwhelmed. And as a result, I too can start to feel kind of burned out. And I have to find ways on a regular basis to keep things fresh and energizing for me. Okay. And this is my website, by the way. I figured that was obvious. So here's the deal. One of the first things I want you all to think about is sometimes when we feel burned out, overworked, bored at work, whatever the situation is for you, we can feel like our tank is on empty. We're just not enthusiastic or lethargic, not motivated or excited to go to work anymore. And one of the first things I want you all to do is to think right now about how you feel. We're going to pull you about this in just a few slides here, but I want you to start thinking about, what is the situation for you? Is it that, gosh, I used to love what I do, but now I'm just burned out, and some of the tasks that I'm great at performing, I'm tired of doing them anymore? Is it that you're bored and you just haven't had a new challenge at work or in your career path in, the last several years, recently enough to feel energized and motivated again? Or is it for you in your situation that you're overworked? Even when, or especially when you're great at something, a specific task or project in your career, sometimes you can get, unfortunately, rewarded with more work as a result. And we can get this feeling of, just feeling completely burned out. So start thinking right now for me, please, everybody, which category do you fall into? And one of the things that I want to ask you to think about too right now while I'm thinking about it, and then we'll go to this next slide, is this just a passing phase for you, or is it something that has been, consistent for a longer time than, the last 3 or 4 months? Because you also want to think about whether your sense of feeling burned out is more situational and you can kind of stay the course, but you need to just change things up at your current job a little bit, or whether it's time to move companies or move into a different industry. So think about that as well, the timing of everything too, so you can identify whether it's more situational or long-term. So we are going to talk today about how to handle these different feelings and issues, okay? That's what we're focusing on. For me, I just wanted to share kind of my story really quickly. When I was starting to feel burned out in my career a long time ago, it was probably about, 5 years into owning my business. It was like, okay, I was doing mostly individual coaching and kind of doing the same thing over and over. It felt like that for me. And for me, on a regular basis, about every 3 to 5 years, what I find is I need to find new ways to make it challenging for me again, create new challenges for myself and kind of refresh my talents and skills in my coaching business, but also with coaching clients as well. And I make it a goal and a point once a year at least to attend 1 or 2 conferences or classes. One of the second things I did here, if you take a look at the slide, is, instead of just providing coaching individually, giving presentations like this or webinars, providing coaching to groups and in different ways, that helped kind of change it up for me and required me to learn to do things in a different way. So delivering coaching in different formats has been really helpful for me as well. And I wrote several books as part of that process too. And also changing up the audiences that I work with. So, providing coaching to different audiences, corporations, and now we provide coaching and workshops to EMBA and MBA students on a regular basis. Coming up with new topics to deliver to new audiences and grow our business to have coaches on our team, which is what I've done in the past several years, and also working on my management skills. So there are things that you can do, and I want you to start thinking about as we're talking about today, how can we grow or change your role on a regular basis? And I want you to think about how often that needs to be. What I have found for myself, it's about every 3 years I need to mix things up a little bit. For you, it may be a little bit less or a little bit more. So consider about every, 3 to 5 years, you may need to change things up enough in order to feel challenged and stay, kind of enthusiastic and engaged in your work. I would definitely, by the way, and then we'll talk about our agenda for today, I would definitely consider this on your annual planning, because we're coming up to the end of the year here, for your next year. Every single year you want to consider and think about, okay, am I leveraging the strengths that I want to leverage though? And have this be part of your strategic career plan on an annual basis as well. And I would say, like I said, around like every 3 years or so, you want to make a more dramatic change in order to keep things fresh. So here's our agenda for today, everybody. If you'll take a look at the slide here. We're going to talk about the situations that occur and the impact that happens to us as a result of feeling burned out. I'm going to give you 10 different tips to manage and improve this sense or overcome this sense of feeling burned out. And then I want you all to make sure that you come up with action steps that you will take in the next week. We'll have a slide on that, and I'll give you some examples of things that you can do. And I also wanted to mention that I am happy to do a free 20-minute career strategy session with anyone on the call today if you feel like you need additional assistance with this particular topic or any other career goal that you need help with. What I have found is these webinars are great, and we will answer as many questions as we possibly can. But if any of you have a more specific situation that I may need to learn more about, please go ahead and schedule that strategy session, because every once in a while I need to learn a little bit more about someone's situation in order to give them the right advice. And by the way, too, as a reminder, this is being recorded today, but if anyone would like a copy of the PowerPoint slides, I would be happy to share those with you. Just email us at admin@halliecrawford.com, and we will get those to you right away so that you don't feel like you have to be frantically writing everything down. I'm a big writer and note taker, and sometimes that gets in the way for me actually being present and attending. So I wanted to offer that to you as well. All right, so let's talk about why burnout can happen. Okay, there's lots of different reasons, and it can be any of these reasons here. And this is, we're going to do a poll on this in just a few minutes here. But it can happen for a lot of different reasons. So I want you all to think about, again, okay, what is your situation and what's going on for you that's causing this sense of burnout? Is it that you've been in a specific job or in a specific role or at a certain company or within a certain industry for an extended period of time, and you just feel like it's the same old thing, it's old hat for you, and you're just getting kind of bored with it? There's not enough new, fresh challenges. In some cases for people, still looking at this first bullet point here on the slide, that they may not feel like their career can progress any further at their current organization. A lot of times when clients come to us, that's one of their complaints, is they're like, I want career growth, and I'm at the top of where I can be in terms of my organization because of the way it's structured, or it's a smaller company or nonprofit or whatever it is. So if you've been in a specific role for a very long time, this can cause that burnout in some cases. Number two here, the second one on the slide, for a lot of our clients as well, they'll come to us and say, Hallie, I'm great at Excel spreadsheets or, whatever it is, but I'm so tired of doing it. They may be called upon to continue to do something that they're really good at, but they're just sick of it and they need to shift their career into a different direction. So it could be that you've been called upon to do something you really excel in, but you no longer enjoy for whatever reason, okay? A third reason this can happen is that our life or our career changes. So, downsizing, or our company or organization may have been bought out by another one. Or if we've had, a life change, whether there's an illness or a death in our family, or, something else where our priorities and our values might change, what is rewarding for you professionally as well as personally can change by, some large event happening in your life. And so sometimes that happens to people where once they got a sense of reward or, sense of fulfillment out of their jobs and they no longer do, they want to do something else that's more aligned with their new values. And finally, at the bottom of the slide here, sometimes when our workload can increase as our competence in a specific area increases, we're rewarded, unfortunately, with more work, and that can cause burnout as well. So there's two areas that there can, be an impact, if you will, or the results of this is that, number one, we can kind of just be disinterested or become less interested in our jobs, become bored or lethargic, and as a result, we're going to be less effective and efficient and successful in our career paths. And second, it could just be flat out that we're overwhelmed. When you're extremely talented, your job can look easy to other people, and they might just assume, okay, you can take on more work for whatever reason. So you can get that sense of overwhelm too, which is not positive. It's a bad result, obviously, of this. So if we can do the first poll, what I want you all to do, please, Sarah will open this up, and then Sarah, if you can just read me the results, please, that'd be great, because I always forget where I can look at these here. It's usually too small. But I want you to think, everyone, about one of these options. Which option is it for you that's causing your burnout? Because the first thing you need to do is understand what's going on and how you're feeling, because you can't make changes or fix it unless you know what the situation is in the first place, okay? So Sarah, if you can open that up, we'll give them a minute to respond.
Yep,
And
the
see
poll's
what we
open,
get.
so if y'all can just take just a couple seconds to submit which kind of category you're falling into, that would be great.
That's awesome. And I just realized too, I need to fix the bullet points on that other slide. I got a little bullet point happy this morning, I think, when I was sizing everything.
I'm just going to leave this open for a couple more seconds here, let y'all finish sending in your submissions.
Perfect.
All right, let's see how our breakdown looks. So Hallie, it looks like 47% of folks said that they've been in a job, a specific role, or an industry for a long time. 19% said continuously asked to do something and they're tired of it. 21% life changes, value changes, and 14% workload increases as competence increases.
Gotcha.
Thanks so
Okay.
much for responding.
Yeah, thank you all for responding and participating. We really appreciate it. And Sarah, thanks for reading. So the majority of people today have been in the same, role or organization, that kind of thing, similar to me. So these will obviously apply, the tips that we give you will obviously apply to all of these situations. But for those of you that fall into that 47%, one of the things that you want to do is think about, okay, is this job or this career path not a fit for me anymore? Or is it the organization? Or is it just, the role that I'm playing here? Can I shift it in any way, shape, or form where I currently am? Because we always want to try to make changes where we are now, everybody, because obviously that would be a lot easier. But then if you need to consider, gosh, do I need to try a different organization, or a different industry, but the same role where I can leverage my transferable skills, that might be an option too. Okay, so you want to think about what the situation is. All right, so let's talk about and get started on our 10 tips. I do encourage you all to take these tips in the order that they are presented, or work through them in this order, because they're presented in a certain way for a specific reason, okay? So we are going to go through each of these, and I'm going to give you action items and things to think about for each of these tips, okay? So the first thing that I want you to do is, number one, is assess what's going on. Take a step back. And in addition to thinking about, what we already talked about earlier, how long have you felt this way, burned out? And if it's been a long time, what kind of dramatic change do we need to make? And also what's going on for you, what the specific issue is. I also want you to do this assessment as well. Take a step back and start to think about what you want in your job at this point in your life, what you want in your job and in your career path at this point in your life. Why did you start or begin in your field at the very beginning? Get back to that passion or sense of enjoyment. What was it that was appealing to you in the first place? And then also, as part of this, think about what has changed since you started that has caused this burnout, these things to happen, okay? It's also, by the way, even helpful to think about everything that you want in your life, not just in your work, because this is where we look at and identify values for our clients. We have them actually look at their personal values and identify what their personal values are now first, and then we talk about what their career values are from that. Because if we can align our career path and our jobs with what we want in our personal lives as well, at least, as much as we possibly can to a certain extent, we're going to feel happier in both, and especially in our career path, okay? And as part of this, think about, okay, are you being overworked in any particular area? And are you doing too much or performing one task too much that at first you enjoyed, but now it's taking over your job and you don't like it anymore? You really need to take a step back and be very clear and specific about what is going wrong in the job, because, and actually let me show you this next slide here, because what we find, everyone, is that when people come to us, they're typically so frustrated by what's been going on with them in their career that they're just like, oh my gosh, I need to go do something completely different. And they're, wipe the slate clean and, just do something completely different. Where 9 times out of 10, if they just took the time to really analyze and think about, okay, what is the real problem here? Is this just situational? Or is this just about the work environment I'm in? Or I've been performing one task too often and I need to change things up. Once they get more practical and realistic about it and kind of take the emotion out of it, they realize that there are some specific things that they can do, and it's actually not as bad as they thought it was. This is where, when you look at the next slide here, everyone, the career model comes in very handy. So this is the ideal career model we use with all of our clients to help them define their career direction, what is the right career path for them. But we also use the same model to help people determine what changes they need to make in their career and develop their strategic career plan. So if you take a look at the model here, one of the things that you can do in order to assess what is wrong and what's causing this burnout for you is look at each of the pieces of this model and use it, everyone, like a checklist, and say to yourself, okay, so for example, am I still feeling a sense of enjoyment or motivation or reward, fulfillment from my job or not? And what is causing that? Have my values changed? Has my job changed since I started? and now I'm not working with the same people that I was working with before, or I'm not serving the same audience that I was at the beginning, and I lack that sense of fulfillment because I want to work with that original group. Okay, so you can look at the fulfillment piece first. That's where we recommend you start, because a lot of times that is the problem for people. The next piece here on the model you want to take a look at is the enjoyment piece, and ask yourself, the tasks that I perform during the course of a regular day and the projects I'm working on, do I still enjoy those? Do I get a sense of, enjoyment out of them? And am I performing the tasks that I want to perform the majority of the time? Is that the case in the course of my day? Give you a quick example. I'll just use me as an example to help with this. I enjoy marketing and writing and editing articles. That is something that's fun for me. However, I used to have a marketing and editing job at a university in Chicago. I hated that job. It was not the right fit for me, because marketing and editing, just using this as an example, everybody, is part of what I should be doing during the course of my day. It's not rewarding enough for me to be doing it all the time. So as part of the enjoyment piece, everyone, you want to think about the tasks that you're performing and where you're spending the majority of the time during the course of your workday. And is that percentage out of whack? Because if it is, that can cause this burnout as well. You want to be able to say to yourself, 80% of the time I want to be a coach and I want to be helping people, find the right job. And the rest of the time, 20% is this, et cetera, right? You need to think in terms of percentages with the enjoyment and where you're spending your time during the course of your day. And don't get sucked into thinking just because you enjoy one or two tasks that that's the thing you should be doing all the time. You have to think about, how often do I actually want to perform those tasks? The next box you want to take a look at is your strengths. Studies have shown that if you are not leveraging the strengths you want to use on a regular basis during the course of your day and your work week, you are not going to be fulfilled. So I also want you to make a list of what your top 5 strengths are. If you're not sure what they are, take the StrengthsFinder assessment. It's strengthsfinder.com. It's a very fantastic, it's an affordable, fantastic, gives you a lot of really good information assessment that we love using with our clients because it's very easy to understand and digest the material as well. Or as part of this, to identify what your strengths are, especially now in your career, ask other people, ask friends and family members what they see are things that you do better than most people they know. Ask fellow coworkers or former coworkers to help you identify what your top 5 strengths are. Come up with what those are and make sure that you're leveraging those on a consistent basis at work, because if you're not, it's not going to be a fit for you long term, and this could be what is causing you to be bored or burned out. Then we take a look at education and experience. And for these two, everyone, you basically just want to ask yourself, gosh, there were these classes in college at Georgetown that I really enjoyed, and I'm not using that strength or that talent any longer in my job, and I want to get back to that. And with experience as well, you want to think about past experiences that you've enjoyed, whether it's traditional, work, or also any leadership positions you've had or volunteer work, and ask yourself, what would I want to have kind of incorporated into my job again to make me feel more motivated and enthusiastic about it? So with education and experience, you think about past classes and experiences as well that you may want to bring forward again, that you may have lost sight of or track of in your career path. And finally, the last 3 here, you take a look at your personality type. With this one, personality and work environment, everyone, interact enormously. So with your personality type, you want to make sure that with your current career path and role, that it's the right balance for you of introvert, extrovert time. If you're very extroverted and you're spending way too much time alone by yourself, not working with a team at work or interacting with other people, this can literally make you lethargic, because when you're extroverted, you get your energy from being around other people, and vice versa, same with introvert. So with your personality type, you need to think about, is my current role and is my current organization, the culture, their values of the organization, their mission and their vision, as well as the people I'm working with, are they a fit for my personality type, in addition to where I'm spending my time? Because if they're not, this can cause that burnout. And with the work environment, I just referenced a couple of the things that you want to take a look at. You want to think about the work environment and the culture there in terms of where the organization is going. Do you believe in their leadership and their vision? Because if you don't, it's going to burn you out and you're not going to be happy and it's not going to be a fit. And if the organizational environment or culture, or even what they produce as a product or service, if that doesn't align with your values, or if it steps on any of your personal values, it's going to cause a rub and you're not going to feel good either. And then finally, compensation, critical piece to the model, because we all want to be financially compensated, of course, for the work that we do. This could be part of what's frustrating for you. So just as a quick review, and then we'll go to step number 2 here. As a quick review, the ideal career model, everyone, can be your checklist to help you determine what is going wrong, okay, and what's causing this burnout for you, and also help you start to think about, okay, what changes do I need to make? So where the model is out of whack, so to speak, are the changes that you need to start making, and what you need to consider you need to do differently in order to get that spark back for your job, okay? So the second step that you want to take here is, based on the model, you want to write down those top 5 things that need to be different based on what you've evaluated from the model. Some examples could be, you need to reduce the use of one of your skills or increase the use of one of your other strengths, okay? It could be that you need to adjust the work environment. And if you can't control that, which a lot of times we can't, it may mean that you need to go to a different organization. It could be within the same industry. It could be, within the same role, but just at a different work environment. So one of our clients, she worked at Ernst & Young in Chicago several years ago. And when she first came to us, she said, I am so burned out, Hallie, I think I need to go be a chef. This was an example of, she felt like she had to make that dramatic of a change. When it came down to it, she actually really liked her company. She liked the employees that she managed, and she liked a lot of the things about her actual role and the tasks she had to perform. Her boss ended up being the biggest problem for her. And she actually decided as well, instead of external consulting, she wanted to work in-house in business development and strategy instead. So that shift of adjusting her environment made a huge difference in terms of her feeling more enthusiastic about work again, okay? And one of the things too here, if you take a look at the third bullet point on our slide here, one of the things I would highly recommend you do, which is based on what I said just a few minutes ago, is take some time this week for the next, the rest of this week, just from a general sense. It doesn't have to be too nitpicky, but I would recommend you track your hours to pay attention to where you're spending your time at work and how you are spending it. What tasks are you performing? Who are you working with? What's going on in your current day? We can kind of lose sight of that and not always have a sense of it. And tracking your hours like this to understand, looking back at the week, at the end of this week, to be able to get a sense of where you're spending the most time can be enormously helpful to help you understand what's going on and get a clear picture of what's going on, and therefore what you may need to change. So homework idea number 1 is to track your hours this week and review it at the end of this week to get a sense of what may be matching up with the career model and what may be missing and not working as well, okay? And like I said at the beginning, if you need assistance, I'm happy to do a free strategy session with you to talk you through the changes that you need to make, because I realize sometimes this can be easier said than done. Sometimes you have more control over what you need to do versus less, okay? So in terms of changing things up, the next thing that you want to consider is, after you've written your top 5 things at your current job that you want to change or that need to be different, you need to ask yourself this question on the slide here. Can you get your top 5 things at your current job or current organization, or do you need to switch roles or companies or even industries? Is it possible to do this? We always suggest you try to do this first, obviously, if possible, where you are, because that would be the easiest thing. In some cases, you may be able to talk to your boss about this. In other cases, you may not be able to. So it just depends. We have had clients go to HR and confidentially talk with them. I want to discuss with you my career possibilities here and my progression and what is possible to, change or adjust here so that I can move up or move forward. at least try to find out and get a sense of if there's anything you can do where you currently are, because that obviously would be a lot easier. Okay, so after you've done that assessment and have a sense of those top 5 things, here are some ideas, everybody, in terms of, advice and steps that you can take in order to make these adjustments and changes. Some of them will be within your current job. Some of them will be external tasks that you take on. So tip number 3 is to avoid being burned out, or kind of get out of this hole, if you will, is stay in the know about what's going on. This is one of the things that I tend to not be as good at. I am not as much of a, hungry learner. And so I have to set goals for myself to attend conferences, like I said earlier. So one of the things you need to make sure that you have present on your annual strategic career plan as part of what we're talking about today is you want to make sure that you can improve things by staying in the know. Make sure that you're constantly being challenged at your job in the way that you want to be. Do you need to learn new software and you've avoided being involved with that for a really long time? Is there a new skill that you've been dying to, dive into or develop, but you've just been putting it off because you've, been so busy? So for me, I attend conferences on a regular basis, attend coaching classes, but also business courses as well. And just as a reminder for tip number 3, everybody, this makes you marketable if you need to leave. You always need to stay fresh and up on what's going on within your industry, and make sure that you're marketable just in case you need to make a move for whatever reason. So tip number 3 is to stay in the know. Tip number 4 is to put yourself out there. When we have been in a job for a very long time, especially at, a specific organization, we can kind of get into our hole and into a rut. And it's really important, especially for those introverts out there, and I can say this because I'm actually more introverted than extroverted, is to put yourself out there more, especially if your job is a solitary one. And even if you don't want to land a more extroverted role, putting yourself out there will get you more involved in a new project that someone may be thinking of but hasn't announced yet. And they might match you up with a new team or with that project. It could be perfect. And if you hadn't, put yourself in that situation or position, they wouldn't have thought of you. So be a little bit more social. That doesn't mean that you have to go to happy hour with people after work necessarily, but go to more of the company events inside and outside of your organization, whether it's association meetings. People tend to fall down on this. We find with our clients that they're not attending as many industry-specific association meetings as they should, or conferences. You'll learn about new things and be invited to do more if you push yourself to be seen a little bit more proactively at your organization, within your organization, but also within your industry in general. So volunteer or offer to speak at, one of the next conferences that's coming up for your industry, or write an article for the newsletter or for their blog. Do something, or doing something like this to kind of push you out of your comfort zone will help you feel more energized and enthusiastic about what you're doing. Tip number 5 is to volunteer yourself internally or externally. And this can be personally or professionally, by the way, everybody. This one is to kind of mix it up if you're getting a little bit bored. Raise your hand for a project that you wouldn't otherwise have done so. Start something new that your company needs, a program or a project. Volunteer your time outside of work. Remember that how you feel personally impacts how you feel professionally. So work on both. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you all is we have had clients do remote volunteering. That's sort of a newer thing as of the past few years. We had a client once in Atlanta. She did a remote online project for a nonprofit organization. It was helping them with their Google Analytics with their website. She worked within a team. It was a remote project. The company or organization was in California, but it was great for her because it helped her hone her skills in that area. She met some new people, even though it was remote. The team leader and the organization both gave her a very good recommendation for her work, and it enabled her to get back into a career path that she hadn't been in for a little while because she gained that experience. The websites on this slide here, everyone, are places where you can identify volunteer opportunities, whether it's in person and locally or remote volunteer experiences or opportunities as well. So if you're looking to hone a new skill, one of the ways you can do this to kind of test the waters and try it out is by volunteering your time a little bit, okay? Tip number 6 is to participate more actively within your team. Okay, there are small things that you can do to help you kind of get back in the game again. Sometimes in some cases for us, it doesn't have to be this huge change, and it's more about just participating more actively, even if it's just for a short time while you assess what you need to do long term. If you do this, you participate more actively in meetings. You come more prepared than you normally do. You think for a few minutes instead before a meeting about, okay, what do I want to get out of this meeting in terms of my own professional goals, not just what's going on for our organization, okay? If you do this and raise your hand and speak up more frequently to provide ideas, to come up with new suggestions and improvements for programs and projects, you will just naturally feel more engaged and motivated. There's a little bit of kind of fake it till you make it in this particular tip, but it does help. If you just push yourself a little bit, it can help you feel more engaged. Tip number 7 is to communicate with your supervisor regularly, not just in performance reviews, because then they will keep you in mind and top of mind when that next promotion comes up, if that's what you're looking for. Talk to your boss or with HR, whatever is appropriate for you, okay? Some HR departments are better than others depending on your organization. We have a client who's works at Georgia Pacific, and they happen to be great. If you go to their HR department and speak to them about your career progression and where you want to be going, they will talk to you about it and help you come up with a plan for this. So again, it depends on your organization, but you don't want to just wait, everyone, for your performance review or your annual review to talk to your boss about, hey, there are some things that I'd like to add to my plate here, or this is where I want to be going career-wise. These are some of the things on the slide here that you can discuss with them on a more regular basis. What you need to do and what you'd like to do or change in your role to stay fulfilled and effective. Do you need assistance? Are you being a little bit overworked? Not that you would go right in there and complain and say, this is too much work and seem like you're not a team player. But there are ways that you can approach this to say, hey, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed or swamped with this one particular project. Is there a way that you can help me identify how I can do this differently? Or someone that can help me out with it? Is there someone else with an additional skill set that would be helpful for this? Okay. You want to talk with them about your career goals long term and where you'd like to be within the organization, and also any skills that you may want to add to your plate, okay? And if for some reason, if you take a look at the last bullet point on this slide, if your supervisor tends to be the type that doesn't listen or might be intimidated by, the confidence that you have and maybe afraid that you're going to take their job or something like that, is that a sign that, gosh, it's time to move on? That may be, something you need to consider and think about. I need to find a different supervisor that's going to be supportive or more supportive of my growth, okay? So definitely communicate with your supervisor or whoever it is appropriate to do so on a regular basis about what you would like to do going forward, and making sure also that you're asking them what you need to do to enhance and keep your performance top notch. So don't forget also to regularly ask for their feedback. Don't wait until the performance review for that either. One of my old bosses I had when I was in my 20s, she said, your performance review should not be a surprise. You should pretty much know every single thing that I'm going to say to you, because we've been communicating consistently on a regular basis about it all along the way. And I totally agree with that. Tip number 8, and we'll do this next poll here in just a second, is to take a class, whether it's online or otherwise. These examples on the slide here are examples of sites that we recommend to our clients for online courses. But there could be something locally for you at a community college that you want to take a class long term. It could be a one-time class. the General Assembly has great professional courses, and they're growing. I've heard of them opening offices all over. They're in Atlanta, New York, LA, most likely in DC as well. It's again called the General Assembly, and they have professional development courses that are fantastic, that are shorter term, that you can take to try something out. Also consider with this, everyone, professional certifications that you can gain. Look at and check out coursework and classes that could be offered through your industry association. 9 times out of the 10, they have some great classes that you can take. And this also could be part of, attending a conference. You could consider that as a type of class that you could take as well. So we're curious about the second poll here, about how many of you have taken an online course and hopefully found it effective. Sarah, if you want to pull that up, that's great.
Yep, the poll is open. If you'll just take just a second to tell us if you've taken an online course or not. Love to get a sense of who we have out there.
That's awesome. And I'm just drinking some water here too because I'm talking a lot. We're going to give you guys a chance to ask some questions here in just a few moments.
And I'm just going to leave this poll open for just a couple more seconds. Thanks for your speedy replies. Alrighty, let's take a look at the results. So Hallie, 58% of our folks have taken an online course before, and 42% of you have not.
Awesome. Okay, good. Please, for those of you who shared that you have taken an online course, if you have any other recommendations for classes that you could take, online or otherwise, and Sarah, if you could share any, ideas that you have from Georgetown as well, please feel free to share those at the end. We find more and more frequently clients are taking, online courses, but other adult education classes as well. And even, remember to put those certifications when you take that class, whether you get a certification or not, I should say, but especially if you do, remember to add that to your LinkedIn profile and add it to your resume as well, because again, that helps you be more marketable in the long run, okay? Tip number 9 is to embrace change. Be open to it, but also cause it in some ways, okay? So to give you a new challenge, but also add to your experience and skill set, if competitors are killing your, organization or your sales process and you're not doing as well with your sales, for example, or if there is a process that is just not as efficient as it should be at your organization, think about new ways to change that product or process or service. If your company is resisting it, talk to your boss and some other people and get other people supportive of the changes that need to be made. Suggest updates, improvements, or efficiencies that could help improve the processes and systems, either operationally within your organization or things that you offer to your clients or your customers. Consider or identify like an issue at work or a challenge or something that may not be working as well on a more regular basis for yourself at your organization and suggest those improvements to not just embrace that change, but cause it. That can help you feel more engaged and more like you're making a difference instead of just kind of clocking your hours. If you do this, this can help you enormously, get more engaged in your organization. And by the way, if they're resistant to it or they continue to be so, that could be another sign that, hey, it might be time to move on. And tip number 10 is to create an action plan based on everything that we've talked about today. So we'll have a couple more slides here and we'll get to the Q&A. So please feel free, as you start to formulate questions, everyone, please feel free to start sharing those in the chat box because we'll identify those or address those in just a moment. So tip number 10 is to have your action plan. Do you need to stay at your current role for X number of months? So 6 more months, let's say, to see if you can make those changes where you are, okay? And after that point, you might say to yourself, it's time to move on or move into a different organization or a different industry. We encourage you as part of your action plan and your strategic career plan, which we're going to poll you about in just a few moments here, that we want you to set 3, 6, and 12-month goals, okay? on a regular basis and regularly update them as a start for you. And then after that, once you've got your strategic career plan kind of rolling and written out, you want to make sure that every 6 and every 12 months you're updating it and projecting out 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. Okay, so you want to have goals for those different milestones as part of your strategic career plan. So come up with, as part of what we're thinking about today here, some of the action items that you want to pursue. And let's do this third poll here, Sarah, with how many have a strategic career plan, yes, no, or not sure what that is. And I'm going to offer you a tool for this on the next slide. If anyone wants a tool to write your strategic career plan, happy to give that to you.
So just leaving the poll open for a little bit longer. And it's completely okay if you don't know what a strategic career plan is. Hallie will talk you through that and how to build one out.
Right. I didn't either at the beginning before I started coaching, so don't feel bad. It's totally fine.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and close this. And so it looks like 16% of folks do have a strategic career plan. Good for you guys. 70% do not, and 14% have told us that they don't know what it is. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you for sharing and for being honest, everybody. Like I said, I didn't know either. It's totally okay. So I want to share this with you, this next slide. We have 2 things that we can help you with. And then please, with your strategic career plan, and then please feel free to schedule that strategy session with me after you take a look at it, because I'd be happy to help you kind of fill in those gaps where you have questions. But we have 2 things here. So we have a webinar, 3 keys to unlock your strategic career plan. Okay, so feel free to email me for that webinar recording. Also, as part of that though, everyone, there's a template that we use with our clients that I would be happy to share with you. It's an Excel spreadsheet that is pre-filled out, and you just need to start filling in those pieces with your action items. So it will guide you towards what you need to incorporate into your strategic career plan. So just know that there's tools, and it will make it so much easier for you. I'm happy to share those with you. Just feel free to email us about it. Okay. All right. So finally, I want you all to start thinking about action steps. I'm going to give you some examples here. If any of you would like to talk with me about coaching, and if you feel you need some long-term assistance with this or just a one-time session to get some advice on any of the things that we spoke about today or any other career goals, please feel free to schedule a session with me. I'm happy to talk with you in just a free 20-minute phone call to learn more about our services. These are some of the testimonials that we get from our clients. Because we've been doing this for so long, we get great results for our clients. We're very proud of that. All right. So let's talk about taking action. And I want you all to get out your pen and paper, please, and start taking some notes here about action steps that you will take. Come up with 2 for us in the next week. Feel free to share them in the chat box, but also go ahead and do the questions as well. But I want you to come up with 2 action items. Some examples could be to review the model, talk to your boss about what you want your next steps to be, participate more actively in meetings, suggest some improvements or changes, whatever it is for you, please go ahead and write those down. And as you're thinking about those, I want to leave you before we go to the Q&A portion here with the quote that always helps me get through the times when I'm feeling kind of burned out, overworked, frustrated about my career path, is the greatest risk in life is not taking one. This is actually my favorite quote. I share this all the time in my webinars because you want to be able to say, when you're 80, sitting in a rocking chair, talking to your grandkids or whatever would be relevant for you, you want to say that you tried in terms of getting more engaged and enthusiastic and more strategic about your career versus that you didn't do anything at all, that you tried even if you failed and it wasn't, quite as good as you wanted it to be. You want to be able to say, I did something about this and I took that risk to make it happen versus I didn't do anything at all. Okay, so let's get to the Q&A, please. I will answer as many questions as we can today. And just by the way, if we don't get to your question for whatever reason, please feel free to email me. I'd be happy to answer quick questions via email as well. Okay, Sarah, if you can just go ahead and field those. I know usually it takes like a couple minutes for people to formulate them and kind of process things.
Yeah, for sure. Hallie, thanks so much for everything you've shared with us today. And everyone, please feel free to send in questions for Hallie as you have them. Really appreciate your comments that have come in too. Hallie, you've gotten a lot of great, this is a great webinar and really appreciate the insights. So super job to you. And thanks again for being with us today. A question, just kind of recap from you, Hallie. So how often should we be checking in with ourselves just to make sure that burnout is not happening, or that if we're recognizing some of the signs, kind of what's the time frame there?
A good time frame to identify if it's time to make a dramatic change. Is that what they're asking, Sarah, just to be sure?
Yeah, exactly. Like how kind of to discern between that kind of apathetic, okay, I'm just chugging along, versus like it's time for me to make a dramatic change. What's the lead time there? How long should we give ourselves kind of before saying, okay, I need to do something dramatic?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for clarifying. I always just want to make sure I've got it right. So what I would say is it'll vary depending on, project length and things that you're working on. But if it's been more than 3 months, like more than 3 months of feeling this way, I do want you to evaluate things. What I would say is after, 3 months, you may say to yourself, okay, let me try to make some changes in the next 3 to 6 months after that to see if you can make those adjustments in your current role. And if at that point you can't, then I would move on. So honestly, 3 months I think is kind of the minimum. The maximum would be 6 months.
Great, thank you. Do you have any advice for strategic career planning for individuals who are looking to wind down their careers and think more about retirement? So kind of towards the end of things. And then I guess kind of an interesting alternative to this question, so I'll ask it all in once. Any advice for those looking to re-enter the workplace full-time after temping or consulting or taking some time off for a couple of years? So kind of two ends of the spectrum there.
Sure. Great questions. So one of the things I would do is I would look at the career model, because that will help you identify what you want to have next. So you need to identify and be clear about, okay, what are my goals for this next phase of my life? Because for people that are looking at retirement, for example, compensation may not be as big of an issue. So it might be there, but you might be saying, hey, I'm looking more for like part-time work in terms of the work environment, and I'm not as worried about the compensation. I really care about leveraging my strengths. Or another person might say, I really want to just feel fulfilled and the rest is kind of gravy, right? So that's what I would say for the retirement, and be aware of that the kind of the weight that you place on each of the pieces of the model may be different than you would have in the past. Okay. And the same for someone re-entering the workforce or that was temping before and wants to get back into it. Same idea, actually, looking at the career model and saying, okay, what are the pieces that, what have I enjoyed so far in what I've been doing? And what are the pieces I want to have in place now? And how do I weight each one of these and define each one of the pieces in order to identify the next steps? Hopefully that answered for both.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Someone wants to know, kind of just a reality check question. So they've recently joined an organization about 6 months ago, and they're already feeling completely burned out and exhausted. Is this something that you've seen with clients in the past, and any recommendations here?
Sure. So when you start a new job within a new organization or company, you've got to give yourself, at least that 6 months to feel like you're getting your sea legs. So for this person in particular, I would say give it at least another, like 3 to 4 months. Assess what's going on. Why do you feel burned out? Is it that you're just kind of, getting your sea legs with it and figuring out what's going on and getting into the groove of the new job, because that's normal for everyone? Or if you look at the career model again, are there big gaping holes? Like, you know what? It's not just about I'm learning everything and trying to figure things out. There's actually a couple of pieces missing. See if you can make some adjustments or changes. And I would definitely, one way or the other, give it at least 3 or 4 more months to see how you feel at that point. and then come back to this exercise again and say, okay, what changes do I need to make? And is it something that's inherent in this role or at this organization? Or was it just, whew, okay, now I'm feeling a little bit more settled? Hopefully that answers for that one.
Great, thank you. Hallie, interested to hear any reactions or feedback for someone who's looking to take a break from the workforce for a little while, maybe taking a year off to figure out next steps, as long as you can afford it. Are there any drawbacks to doing that? Any kind of, at-risk things that might happen if one were to take that time off?
Great question. So, I think time off can be fantastic because it can, like especially if you're traveling or something, it can give you new experiences. You can enhance your skill set. You could take classes. There are things you could do in order to enhance yourself professionally. So there are a lot of great things about it. The drawbacks, things that you want to be mindful of if you're planning to do this is, you have the gap in your resume and you need to be able to explain that to an employer and be prepared to do so. You want to keep track of what you've done during the course of that time and how it might be relevant for the workforce later on, so you don't lose track of those things and can not only explain what you were doing, but how it actually, enhanced you as a professional, so that you can explain both of those things. And I would just be purposeful about the time off. It's a great idea to say, okay, I want to figure things out, but make sure that you have a way to do that. Don't just let the time fly by and you look back and you're like, uh-oh, I didn't accomplish the goal I wanted to. So be purposeful and have a plan for it as well. If you want to figure out your career path, use the career model in order to say, okay, this is what I need to do, and maybe I need to work with a coach or a mentor or a friend or whatever to help me figure out my path. So basically, just make sure that the time is well spent, so to speak. Hopefully that answers.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Advice for the best way to monitor job markets in your area, or maybe to even monitor job markets in different area if you're looking to make a geographical move sometime soon. Tips for finding the best jobs, the best kind of fit for you.
Yes. So if you're looking outside of your location, several things, and this actually honestly in a lot of ways goes with, within your area as well. You want to identify and attend associations that you may want to join and attend some of their meetings. Even if they're remote, go over there and, fly over there for a few days, attend some meetings, but also set up some informational interviews. So the networking piece of it is critical as well. And this is where you want to network with your fellow alum. And, I'm not sure, Sarah, if you can share this in a second, but if you all have an online directory, if there's another way to, or if you all use LinkedIn more for your alumni directory, but you want to leverage that network enormously so that you can learn more about, okay, what is the market like here? Who do I need to meet? What are the networking events that I need to attend? And even if it is something remote, do that same thing, like plan a trip, attend some meetings, set up some interviews if possible, informational and otherwise too, and to get a sense of what it's like in that area and what skills are valued, because depending on the location and the industry as well, a certain set of skills can be valued more than others. And that's part of, you kind of need to get the lay of the land. That's part of why the networking is so important.
That's great. And I'll just follow that up by saying that at Georgetown Alumni Career Services, we certainly do have resources that allow you to network interpersonally with fellow alumni. So Hoya Gateway is a great one. It was originally designed kind of as a platform to connect students with alums, and we very recently opened it up to connect alumni with alumni. So think of it as Georgetown's kind of narrowed down own personal LinkedIn. So the folks who are on there are really excited about engaging with fellow Hoyas. So definitely check it out, set up a profile. You can search fellow alumni by geographical locations. You can search by industry, interest, a whole variety of features. So that's Hoya Gateway. Be sure to check it out. It's really neat. And the other one is the Alumni Career Network. That's kind of a static network of folks who opt in, who share their information based on where they are and what they're doing. So that is on our website, alumni.georgetown.edu/careers. You can access it from that site. And you can search within the Alumni Career Network to find fellow Hoyas in different places, again, different industries. Hoya Gateway has kind of come onto the scene more recently, so it's probably more up to date, but both are really good resources. Hallie, just as a closing note, and we certainly do have a couple more questions, so all of you, I really encourage y'all to please reach out to Hallie to continue today's conversation and get those questions answered, continue chatting with her. Hallie, just parting words, do you have any books or resources that you recommend folks read or look into on careers or professional development? Any kind of resources you want to share?
I still like The Pathfinder is a book that's great to help people not just figure out their next steps, but also kind of re-engage in their jobs. I think Pathfinder is great. It's just The Pathfinder, Nicholas Lohr. And then another one that's great is to read the StrengthsFinder book itself. And you can, when you purchase that book, you get a code to take the assessment. I think that's fantastic too, because getting kind of in touch again with your strengths and really understanding them completely like that is so helpful to help you determine how to get re-engaged in work.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everyone, we are at time today, so we're going to leave it there. Hallie, thank you again for being with us. Everyone, again, like I said, please feel free to reach out to Hallie. She's wonderful, obviously, and would be more than happy to continue the conversation today, so please do that. Hallie, thank you again for being with us today.
Very welcome. Thanks, everyone, for having me. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.